We may or may not be amongst the midst of peak greatness as far as Bluetooth responsiveness and compatibility with the Nintendo Switch in the potentially smallest form factor that I have ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Gulikit Route Air. The other day, this had finally arrived from Amazon after taking a quick gander at it on the product page. Why did I get this despite the fact that I actually already have a Bluetooth receiver for my Nintendo Switch, considering that Nintendo doesn't bother to include Bluetooth compatibility for audio on their very beloved system? Because when I first laid eyes on the Genki Bluetooth adapter, I was in love with how small, portable, and functional it really was. Except for a couple of quirks. One is that obviously this negates certain cases when it's actually on the system because of how wide it really is. It's not a very thick adapter, so it kind of adapts, no pun intended, to the actual thickness of the Switch itself, which is almost like a tablet in terms of size, but it does stick out quite a bit, as you can tell from the image there. And also, there is some minor lagging going on with the audio. And when I say minor, we're literally talking about 1 or 2 milliseconds, maybe even a little, just a fraction over that. So then this little bad boy caught my attention. This is actually from the company Gulikit, and that may or may not sound a little familiar to you. That's because they created many accessories for the Switch. One of them I actually already own, which is the power bank that can attach to the back of the Switch. I actually have a separate video here on my YouTube channel for that battery pack and its little adapter to be carried with the Switch behind it, so it adds an extra dose of portability, mind you. So now I got this Route Air, and the reason why is because I just couldn't bring myself to believe the photos that were on that product page, showing just how thin and tiny and almost invisible this thing could be when attached to the Switch. So here you have the box, and you have the front of the box right there with the product. Really quick picture of the Route Air with the Gulikit. I like how minimal they're going with their packaging. It's just white, and you have just the basic logo with the lettering and stuff like that. Not much going on in terms of flashy look, except that maybe they're starting to resemble Apple just a tiny bit when it comes to like their minor little adapters that they include, like the AirPods or the cases or the cables, etc. But that's just my observation. On the back, you have quick listing of the features and not much really else going for it. So you open it up, and then you get surprise number 1, in my opinion, which is an actual plastic travel case for said adapter. So it doesn't come packaged in some cardboard, plastic, whatever. It's an actual hard plastic case to kind of carry this whole thing around. And that's, again, it's pretty thoughtful. It's pretty thoughtful of Gulikit to include that. And on top of that, on the back of the case, you actually have instructions on how to pair the adapter, as well as a more in-depth look at some of the features that are included inside of the receiver, because there's some things that they've refined that should not be overlooked, but we'll get to those in a second. So all you gotta do is just really lift the little tab here, open up the container, and on the inside you have a foam cutout holding the 2 primary pieces of the adapter. Obviously, you got the adapter itself right there. Yeah, it's looking mighty, mighty tiny. And it gets even tinier when you remove the plastic protector, because more than half of this thing is actually just a little protector for the USB-C connection that it's using right there. Once you remove that, my friends, is the adapter. And boy, oh boy, I never thought we would be at the point where we would have an adapter this small. Now, to be fair, I don't think we would be at the point where we would need an adapter for Bluetooth audio on a Nintendo system in 2020. But as always, I digress. So there's the adapter itself, and then just to kind of cover our bases, the only other piece of equipment you get inside of this container is the secondary adapter, I guess you could say, that has a USB-C female input on one end, and then on the other end of the L-shape form factor, you have USB-A male output, or input rather, so that then you can use this Bluetooth adapter with the Nintendo Switch dock if you want to use Bluetooth compatibility there. Or then again, this whole accessory unit is not meant to be discriminatory by Gulikit when it comes to console preference, because on the back it does indicate that if you ever want to use it on your PlayStation 4 system, you can do so as well with this. So now let's take a look at the transmitter itself. Again, you could, if it wasn't for the USB-C connection, you could probably make this to be an actual like holding unit for something else, and likewise it also makes it a little nerve-wracking to ever think that you could potentially lose this because of how small it is. Plus, you could also make the argument, and this probably leads me to my first little caveat, is that because of its design, with it being simply one tab in this direction and then perpendicularly you have the USB-C connector, you really have to be careful taking this in and out of your system, because one move just off to the side, you could risk damaging the connector. I actually already had one instance where I was trying to remove this from the Switch console, and it did start to make a little clicking noise because of how I was pressing it a certain direction. So why don't I take my Switch here and kind of give you guys a little insight as to what I'm talking about. So here's my standard Nintendo Switch. I do have a Switch Lite, but my girlfriend's still borrowing it. And by borrowing, I mean stolen. She claims it's in her room, but I have yet to see the evidence. So you take the receiver and simply just plug it into the USB-C connector at the bottom where you typically charge it. Plug it in, and as you can see, it just flushes beautifully into the system. Now to remove it, that's where things get kind of tricky, because you'd be quick to think that you could just grab one end and pull it. Big red flag there, because it does make it a little easy to break the USB-C connector on the inside because of its design. So you just got to make sure that you really stretch power all across the adapter with both of your fingers. Well, actually more like 3 or 4 fingers. The more support you give yourself towards the transmitter, more so than your Switch when removing it, the better, because you don't want to risk pressing it too far on one side and then you snap off the USB-C connector and then you find yourself in front of your computer sending Gulikit an email. And now let's go ahead and just pair for demonstrational purposes. Let me switch my Switch on, no pun intended. Make sure it's fully connected. You didn't really see it right there, but now it's showing that the Switch is recognizing the USB-C connector as the primary source to send the audio over to. So now all we got to do is just pair it to my Bluetooth headphones, which are the Jaybird Vistas, not a plug. I just really like them. On the Gulikit receiver itself, there's going to be 2 buttons, one labeled A and the other one labeled B. Much like with prior receivers that you've seen, whether it be from Gulikit or Genki, the 2 buttons mean that you can pair 2 pairs of headsets as opposed to just one, which is dope, because if you ever want to share the experience with somebody, especially with something like the Nintendo Switch where you can share the Joy-Cons, it's almost kind of needed at that point. Press one of the buttons. In my case, I'm just going to use A and hold it down for about 4 seconds. They're blinking, and immediately they almost stopped. This one stopped too. Now we have 2 lights on right there, indicating that this side is connected to one headset. Now we should be able to listen to the Nintendo Switch audio by popping these out. One thing that I noticed right off the bat, it is paired, and I'm getting audio from the Switch. But most of the audio is actually coming through more on the left side than on the right side. And I remember having a similar issue with the Genki, and I was never really able to properly fix that. Now, I don't know if this is their way of fixing it, but it looked like it had worked. So one big thing about the Route Air, as opposed to the prior Genki that I had or other receivers that are out there in the market, is that they went and overhauled their codec system. There's actually 3 codec filters to go through with this thing. Now, Gulikit themselves even encourage on the back of the box to really not tamper with it, because it's designed to recognize the audio codec automatically when plugging it into the Switch. But one thing that I noticed is that, like I said, when you first turn it, most of my audio, if I go over to something like Smash Brothers, for example, and I start loading it up, most of my audio is coming from my left. The right works. It's not like there's no audio coming, but it's lower than that on the left. What I came to realize as a form to fix this is pressing one of these buttons and double tapping it, because apparently double tapping one of these buttons switches to the codecs. I don't know if this is like a way to kind of reset the codec filtering system inside of the receiver and bring it to a default setting, but I double tap it. And now it balanced. I'm getting equal sound, bass, quality, left and right. And it's coming through just fine. It's perfect. And to make matters even more perfect, which also ultimately makes this more of a recommendable choice at the moment than the Genki that I owned prior and many other receivers out there, is that right now, and this was also another issue that I had with the Genki, there's absolutely no lag that I can really notice. Because with the Genki, despite getting good quality audio, two things. One, I was hearing most of my audio on my left side. I didn't have a proper way to fix this, at least at the time. And then two, there was a notable difference of lag. Especially during the time when I was playing Breath of the Wild and I wanted to play some of it at work and I wanted to use the Genki to pair it to my Bluetooth headset. Link would swing and about a third, not even a millisecond, like a third of a second or a quarter of a second-ish, I would then hear Link swinging his sword in my earbuds right here. And I was just not down with that. I've already tested Smash Brothers, I've tested some free-to-play games and a couple of others, and so far, almost zero lag. So not only am I getting zero lag on the audio, and the quality of said audio is coming through very well and crisp across both headphones, but you also have a small form factor that not only makes it almost invisible and flushed to the console itself, but one thing that I was really looking forward to with this adapter is that you can still keep it on the Switch while traveling with it in your case. Because ultimately it's just adding, what, a centimeter or even less than that to the bottom of the Switch. All I gotta do is just fit it right into place. I can still hear all I can still hear audio from the Switch coming through on the case. Yeah. My only nitpick that I did notice is probably my only little issue with the receiver thus far is that I will admit the volume is a little on the low side even at maximum. So if I bring it up to the most maximum audio, I can still actually hear my voice and a couple of other things happening around me, even with the audio at its most peak coming from the adapter. But at that point, you know, look at it as a benefit to be more aware around your surroundings when you're traveling, making sure that you're, again, aware and centered, and also you don't blow out your ears. So that's probably my only real issue with this adapter. Otherwise, this is probably the adapter, the Bluetooth adapter that I recommend. If you're a Switch owner and you've been looking for some kind of solution to be able to take your Bluetooth headset on the go with the Switch and still have them pair them without as little amount of issues as possible, then honestly, the Gulikit Route Air could be the ultimate solution. I see that you made it to the end of the video. Good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to catch more of this glorious content, don't forget to catch some of my live streams on either Twitch or Facebook Gaming. Dark Spider David is the username. Links are in the description. And then, of course, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much. I'll see you on the next one. Stay humble.